Hello and welcome to Good Journeys Tarot. You are watching 78 cards in 78 weeks, where I go through each of the tarot cards in my attempt to create my own imagery from my life experience. And today we are going to be talking about the Four of Pentacles, aka Four of Coins, aka the Four of Earth. And I'm so excited to have a guest with us today to talk about that. But before we do, as always, I'll let you know what's going on here. Um, Not a lot. I'm still in that kind of winter slump here. I did actually get a new computer stand. So my laptop is actually sitting on a new stand, which is an upgrade because before it was on two Witches Moon boxes. So you can see my pretty face. So you might have noticed a little different angle the last couple of weeks. And I'm just going to say it's starting to look like a Northwest Tarot Symposium dinner party here with Patrice and Elle and Kim are here. And backstage right now, our special guest, Jen from Jen's Balance Tarot. Welcome.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
Yes, so glad you could make it. And Jen's no stranger to this type of video as she did a whole year of tarot play dates, going through each card just like I'm doing, pulling one at a time. And we have some other guests as well here. Amy from Strength Reverse is here. Hi, Amy. And I'm sure there's also some lurkers out there. Welcome, everybody. So glad to have you.
Nice to see
So,
everyone.
yes. Yes, I see a lot of faces that I haven't seen in a while. So that's great. I have a tickle in my throat. So this card is one that for me has always seemed a little odd when people interpret it because for me the fours seem to be are about stability. How do you feel about the fours in general in the
I
tarot?
have kind of I have exactly the same, well, probably not exactly, but I have a similar idea about them. And the Four of Pentacles has always been a little bit trickier to me because I know it tends to get a real bend towards, and we can talk more about this when we look at cards, like greed and hoarding and holding on to things too tightly, which I think are all valid interpretations of the card. But I also look at it as protecting your resources, saving, planning, focusing on what's important. And I tend to be sort of a one who looks for the lesson. How can I do something better when I get a card a lot of the time? But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing all the different cards you have today and showing a couple that I have as well.
Yes, well, and so some of them actually do incorporate stability, like this one from the New Era Elements, and of course that idea of security or protection here in the Wild Wood. And that's kind of how I typically see fours. What's interesting is that most people do look at this card and they immediately go to some of these ideas, like the frugal and miserly son. Here in the Tarot of the Toiling Hands, this idea of Scrooge or King Midas and greed and those things. But Waite didn't actually mention any of those things in his pictorial key. He said the surety of possessions, cleaving to that which one has, gift, legacy, or inheritance. And then in the reverse, he said suspense, delay, and opposition. And so I think what's happened is when people look at his version, they feel like this person's clutching to their funds as like in a greedy way or a miserly way or something. But I in a clear image of this card, I don't really get that. I get that he's holding his money, but it's more of like, I mean, and maybe he's protecting it, but I've never gotten that kind of greed feeling that we see in a lot of cards. This is from the Lightworkers deck. And the key phrase she has there is holding tight. What she said about her keywords were these were the keywords from the Golden Dawn. So this was prior to Waite's interpretation and Crowley's interpretation, but it still has that kind of miserly feel, right? And so you get a lot of them that talk about holding tight and wealth and still those misers
I have that card. I pulled that one too.
Yes.
What I
Also,
liked about that one, and the reason that I liked it is, yeah, there's this, we have this skeleton that's wearing all of this jewelry and looking outside, and and it's I'm so afraid to let go of what I have or let other people see what I have or get what I have that I'm just going to stay in here where it's safe and then rot away, which is just kind of terrible, right? So there's a difference between like protecting and ensuring that you have the things that you need, but if you don't go out and live your life, what is it for?
right.
So I love that card.
And this idea of holding tight to something isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it can be a good thing. You know, making good use of our resources and protecting them so we have them in the future is an idea, like we see here in the out of hand with the safe. And we even get that in some thoughts inspired decks as too, like the Rosetta Tarot, where they use the safe as an idea, um, or even in nature, saving for the future, seeds to be planted later, kind of thing. Um, protection. It's not just about greed, but protecting it. So I do like that. Um, so, what other cards did you have with you today?
Well, I have another great example of the protection, and Amy said something in the chat too. She said boundaries, which I think is another great way to kind of look at this. It's like, okay, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours. Sometimes that's okay, an okay boundary to set, and I'm sure there's other applications as well.
And that's the whole idea behind the Thoth version of the card is this fortress with the four towers on the corner, boundaries that are
Hmm.
set for our protection.
Well, and then I had this one here. This is from the Tarot of Oneness, a Kickstarter that I received not too long ago. And I like this one because we have this. I'm assuming it's a squirrel, like keeping its winter food probably away from this. I'm cameras reversed. I've forgotten how to do this. From down here, but it's like, okay, I need to keep this safe and secure so that I have what I need for the winter. Um, so I thought that was kind of a cute interpretation of the
Oh
card.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the mystic garbage goes with penny pinching, using our crab friend. But the rest of my cards actually have a little bit more positive view of the Four of Pentacles. The first one, of course, is the Spirit Keeper's Tarot. Oddly enough, as I've been doing my reading and working through the card and everything, this was kind of the idea that I came up with, is that it's really about conservation. And, part of conservation is knowing when to use things. Uh,
Hmm.
and I liked her interpretation originally because it included both the Thoth and the RWS imagery. And this one's a good bit different than that, but you still get that effect, that feeling of the person holding on to the orbs. And of course, our little goat friend representing Capricorn. Um, and here is the Pocket Appears Tarot, in which we see a depiction of an artist. And she talks in the guidebook about how she used to think of this card as hoarding, because, just having things to have things. But then upon reflection, it's like, but she has all of these paints for when she needs them, right? And they're there available for her to make use of in the right time. And I think that's a lot of what the determining factor is with this card, is like choosing to use what you have and when to use it. So
I
did you
think
have
that's really an important, aspect of it because a lot of times, we know that there's been lots of conversations about this just in the tarot community alone, about choosing to have things, choosing to have tarot decks. And, why do we do that? For some people, they get it because they feel like they should, or that there's a lot of pressure for that. And other people are like, no, I just love this collection. I love having variety. I love the art. Like, we're allowed to have what we need for whatever reason we want. I, on the other hand, I've amassed quite a collection of decks, but I'm also now getting ready to do like a big move. And so I'm reevaluating all those things that I have and what is it that I really need to keep and what is it time for me to let go of now and kind of release. And so I thought it was kind of ironic that the Four of Pentacles was the card you chose for the week that I was going to be on, because I am so in that mode where I'm like evaluating everything, like what's really important to me versus what really doesn't need to go on a moving truck eventually.
Yeah, totally. For me, like having things with my tarot decks is about having different perspectives on the cards. I learned
Mhm.
so much by looking at different takes. Sometimes you look at a card and you're like, well, that doesn't resonate with the meaning of the card. And then you read their thoughts and you study it and you're like, okay, that totally makes sense. And I think one of the things that happens is with most cards in the tarot is that we like clamp onto one key word or meaning of the card. And so when a person produces a deck, that's the focus that they put into that card. Even though the card may have a depth of meaning, it's just that one idea that they really pinpoint on. This is a book that I am really loving. I don't know if you've seen it, The Tarot Dictionary and Compendium by
I have
Jenna
not seen
Riley.
that one.
Well, basically, she takes snippets or quotes on each of the cards from uh, 15 or more different authors, including Oswald Wirth and A.E. Way, Barbara Walker, Rachel Pollack, Mary Kay Greer, and a bunch of others. And I've enjoyed reading it because it really shows that perspective of how differently you can see the cards. Some of them see it as power, which is the Thoth keyword. And there is this concept of, when you have money, you have influence, and therefore you have power. And that's, I think, related also to the astrology behind the card of the sun in Capricorn. The sun basically shedding light on everything in Capricorn, being about the acquisition of influence and money and power. But then, like Mary Kay Greer says, this is the gift of drawing resources that are needed. The awareness of personal value and worth, power, giving structure to or establishing order in a situation. So she works in that that stability and structure of the four as well. And then talks about the shadow side, which I think is the side that most people see when they look at the card in the weight version, is that self-centeredness, that possessiveness that comes across. So do you have any more cards over there with you?
Oh, I do.
Yep.
So so this one is interesting. I saw that you used this deck last week too from the Numinous Tarot.
Okay.
I liked this one. And I look at it and I'm still not exactly sure totally how I interpret it, but I love seeing it's like, okay, these to me feel like very important treasured possessions that I've put somewhere for safekeeping. It doesn't feel greedy or hoardy. It just feels protective. Like these things, I need them to last. They're very important to me. So recognizing kind of the value from what we were talking about before. And then I had another one, and I had to read the book on this. This has been a deck that I resisted getting for forever and has become like one of my very favorites that I really didn't expect. It's the Way of the Panda Tarot. We see this little panda here, and with all of these like connected pentacles. And the way that she describes this card in the book is she talks about how it's about being like attached to the routine. So earlier you were talking about the stability and all of that, and how maybe it isn't even the physical things, but it's like, okay, this is how my day is supposed to go. Everything's supposed to line up in a certain way, and the predictability and stability of that. So I thought that was kind of a great different depiction from anything else I really had that I looked at and pulled for this. So I thought that was a cool way to look at that.
Yeah. I really love the kind of serene look on this woman in the Light Seers deck, holding her purse close to her chest, which is kind of an idea that I adapted for my purposes. But And the reason that I love the look on her face, that kind of
Mhm.
serenity, is it moves this card towards how I view it, the kind of the description Mary Kay Greer gave from that kind of Midas, Ebenezer Scrooge kind of view we get with the Smith Waite sometimes. And
I like though that
my
she has
train
that look on
left the
her face
building.
too. It's kind of like, this is mine. I earned this. I
Yeah,
feel like
well,
there's a
and
little bit of
one of
that
the
going on.
ideas in the Tarot de Marseille that comes up in my reading is this card is about your comfort zone, about satisfaction.
Mm,
And I think that the in the imagery of the Smith Waite, when you get a clear picture of it, a clear image, it does come across more that way. Like there is kind of this serenity, this comfort there, that goes overlooked, because of the the crown, I think, is what
mhm,
does it, because it looks like a king sitting on a throne, which, immediately has a negative connotation for most of the world these
yeah.
days, much like the Emperor card, which the fours are associated with. But for me, that has come down to the idea of stability. And stability to me offers comfort. And I've had some of that over the last few years. So I can kind of relate to that. Even though perhaps I haven't had a crown or a pocket full of gold, I have had enough that I have been stable, and therefore I found a comfort zone and been able to relax and be satisfied with life in a way that maybe I haven't in the past. But definitely, on the shadow side, there are some other things going on. Before we talk about the shadow side, what other cards do you have?
Well, let's see. I have the other ones I have actually kind of do lean a little bit towards that. I have, this was kind of similar to the one from the Bone Stone or from the Everyday Witch. And what I really noticed about this is at first I looked at it, I was like, okay, well, it's really typical RWS sitting on the trunk here with the pentacles. But then I realized, okay, it looks like he's locked himself away in a tower again to protect this, right? So I think there's a difference between being really comfortable with what you have, which I think maybe that's where like the concept of enough could be talked about with these cards. Like what is enough and when is it going to be enough? And maybe there's an aspect of that in here. It just kind of popped in, I kind of started thinking about it, but I haven't fully formed that thought yet.
Mhm.
And then this one here this was I thought really interesting. This is from the True Black, and there's these coins that are kind of like tucked, they're stored away. They've been there for a really, really long time. So the treasure's all down here. It's kind of buried down. It's not accessible, but there's all these webs and stuff that have developed, and these birds can't break free because they're kind of trapped in here with where the stuff is. And there's a certain amount of freedom, and this is kind of, again, I think it's leaning towards the shadow side a bit, where sometimes we get so attached to our stuff that we can't be free. And a lot of people will talk about when they declutter or they get rid of things, again, I'm just doing this just because of a life circumstance. And I actually can feel a difference. It's like, oh, I don't need to hang out in this room. I'm going to go out and get outside because I don't need to be with all my stuff all the time. And there's something about that here, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Simon just popped in. Welcome. And Taro Stash has popped in, as well as some others. Glad to have all of you here today.
Oh,
We have
such
been
a good
talking about the
crowd.
Four of Pentacles and all of the meanings behind it. Um, as far as the shadow side goes, one of the things that we haven't mentioned that comes up a good bit is scarcity mentality. So, that idea of not having enough. And that's something probably going into the pandemic was my focus, right? It wasn't until I was working from home that I realized I have everything I need, really, um, and could really see it for what it was. But there's that alternate meaning on the shadow side too of obstacles to all of those good things we talked about, obstacles to our stability, obstacles to our satisfaction or our comfort zone, obstacles to accepting our worth, or even failure to accept our own value, would be appropriate there. Let's see. I think we've talked. Oh, we haven't talked about the Golden Dawn. Actually, called us the Lord of Earthly Power, and I see how stability and that financial accumulation, it can result in earthly power, but that earthly power can also come from being satisfied, right? Um, Being happy with where we are. So, do you have any other thoughts on this card? Or are there some correspondences or symbols that we haven't talked about?
Oh, probably, but I'm just getting into my coffee. So, I'll see
Absolutely.
another card. I'll have another thought. The minute we end this live, I'll be like, oh, there's that one good thought. You know? Yeah, but I'd also be, curious if anybody in the chat had any thoughts too on like, is there something that you really associate with the Four of Pentacles that you think is different than any of the stuff that we've talked about? Or yeah, I'd be curious to know. I like to
Absolutely.
continue to expand.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Give them a second. So one of the things in the card, which initially I don't usually pay attention to, is that city in the background. So the idea that they're not just clinging to their money out in the countryside, but they actually have the money to live within the walls of the city and to, have a view of the skyline and all of those things that we might sometimes take for granted. There's also a lot said about it regarding where the coins are placed in this particular card, like under the feet and or over the feet, as the case may be, over the heart, as well as other crowns. So basically, that earthly connection from, at each level of your chakras, basically, it's we're connecting with the world, so to speak, in a way. And, it's interesting. Well,
Yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought too much about, and I feel like people have talked about that, but I haven't thought about it in a long time, like how people have thought about the pentacles being under the feet, at the head. What do you think that really speaks to, just out of curiosity?
Well, I did some reading about it, and let me see if I can find. Aha, here's the book that we want. This is a book that I couldn't read when I first started reading the tarot, but now it's actually invaluable. It's the 78 Degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollack.
Oh, while you're looking for that, I see you popped it up on the screen here. Sandra said, I used to think this was just about being mean and keeping everything to yourself.
Right? Yeah.
Going back to like our kindergarten or primary school lessons that we learned.
Yeah. So, and that's actually how I think a lot of people interpret it when they've only studied the Smith-Waite and that he does look that way, but when you get a clear image of it, at least like in this one that I'm looking at now, he has the satisfied look. I think that I don't know. I don't get greedy miser from him looking at him here. I get more that sense of satisfaction that we've talked about. And let's see.
Patrice had a good comment too. Yeah, that one.
There's a sense of stagnancy with holding tight to the coins. Can't enjoy what you have or make use of the coins if you aren't willing to loosen your grip.
Yep. You end up stuck in that tower with nothing but bones.
Absolutely. We talked a little bit about that earlier, and the idea that it's about what we do with it. So here's what Rachel had to say about the coins. She talks about the pentacle symbolizing our basic emotional and psychic energy. So he's holding them close to himself, away from the world. He's covered his most vital points, the crown of his head, his heart and throat, and also the soles of his feet. People working with chakra meditation will recognize the first two as vital point connections to spirit, and to other people. So your heart and your crown. And then covering the feet symbolizes blocking ourselves off from the world around us. So she kind of focuses on this idea of him being solitary and, but yet protected because of where he's placed these coins. And I kind of like that. It's not a bad thing to be alone. It's not a bad thing to have power or resources or influence like he does. The trick is knowing when to use them, so you don't end up like the skeleton in the
That's right. That is the
window, right?
cautionary tale.
Yeah. Yeah. So Amy, Tarot Stash says that Amy is right. Okay, yeah. Amy had mentioned Robin Wood and how greedy the one in that depiction looked.
Mhm.
And he says, I think it's about holding the money too closely and it stops the movement of energy. And that's definitely can be true. Definitely.
Yeah, and Kim not enjoying what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes when it becomes just about the having and not about why, or finding the ways to be grateful for the things we do have, even when we don't have many. We could still, I could be standing next to somebody who has millions of dollars who could feel a lot more miserable with all the stuff that they have. It is a tricky balance. I'm not being very articulate today. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I've totally forgotten my
More
train of
coffee,
thought.
more coffee for Jen.
My train has left the building several times as I've been talking today. Let's see.
Just come along for the ride, people. Just come along for the ride.
So we've talked a good bit about the card and the symbolism and everything. Why don't we talk a little bit about you and what's going on with you before we look at my card? So what is new with Jen, and what do you have coming up for your friends, and what do you want to tell the public?
Oh, thank you for asking. It's I miss this, and I miss the people. I see all of you in the chat. I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss this so much. But I've been kind of through some big upheaval at work. My company got sold, and now I'm working for a much larger corporation with a lot more responsibility. I don't have time to listen into the live chats the way that I used to during the middle of the day. But I still love the tarot. I'm still here for it. I still try to watch some things. But in that as well, one of the things that I was able to discover while, especially during like play date and really getting to interact with people and talk about things. And a lot of times we would talk about things that mattered, and being able to connect with people. It really made me realize that I want to pursue something along those lines. Eventually, I want to make a complete career shift. So I'm working very, very slowly, and I am just at the inroads of building a life coaching business. So that's something that I'm aiming to do, which I haven't really ever said. So, I mean, I've said it in my personal Facebook, but not really very publicly. And I'm also, because I just figured I didn't have enough on my plate already. This is the first time, again, I've said this really publicly, but I'm planning a cross country move to the other coast. So I'm currently in Seattle and preparing to get myself all the way over to New York City, hopefully within the next year or so. So then I'll be in a time zone that's a little more compatible with a lot of my friends. So we have a lot of things going on, but eventually I hope to have a lot more conversations about people and with people. I don't know that this is the end of my YouTube journey as far, but it might have a different look and feel. So that's what's going on with me.
All right. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, you'll be in the same time zone with me, though it will still be a very long flight to get there from where I am. We're on opposite ends, north and south.
Yeah.
Of the country still, but yeah, it's exciting. Well, let's look at what I did, and we'll get everybody's opinion on it and thoughts.
Sounds good.
I started out here And this is actually the same image I used for the Empress, the silhouette anyway, though I flipped it around. And one of my ideas was that for whatever reason, this card I wanted to be female. And I thought, well, before the queen actually learns to become a philanthropist, which is what I call her there, she has to learn about the good use of her money, right? About not hoarding it all. And so I used her here. And as I was searching for ideas, of course, the idea of holding a purse close to you was an idea that resonated with me personally. And so I found this one with the butterfly on it. I had to use it. It just couldn't be anything else after that point. And I decided she needed to be in a nice place. So hence the ornate molding and the kind of travertine looking floor. But and of course I put the gold coins in her purse, so it looked obvious that she had money. But it's not very modern, right? Gold coins, because we don't use gold coins a lot. I tried cash. I couldn't find any cash that looked right with the graphics that I already had. I couldn't get the color of green quite right. So I played with making the coins more like today's money. Silver was too bright for me. And so I did it like a dark brown color, so it kind of looks copper. It looks more like nickels and dimes to me, which I liked the idea of, saving your nickels and dimes to be in a place of security kind of thing. Though I may continue to look for cash to stick out the top of it, just a few bills or something instead of the coins. And so that's kind of where I went with it. And I wanted the floor to be kind of a gold color to resemble how in the Smith Waite they're standing on the coins kind of thing. And then I decided, well, you know what? There's that city in the background, and that kept coming up in my reading. And so I was like, okay, let's put a window there. Let's put the city that we've used in other cards in the background. So and then I started playing with it from there. I tried different colors of the silhouette because there's something about when you put gray against black that they just kind of blend in with each other, even if they're not like the same shade, right?
It's
I
fun
played with
to
color.
see your kind of the different thoughts you had as you were creating this card. I like seeing the progression of your card journey.
Yeah, then I played with the sky in the background to try and make the another connection. I liked this one with the sun kind of shining into the sky because it had that kind of gold effect of the crown that we get in the Smith Waite. And but I ended up changing the background because I had started out with this wall that was green and kind of the cream color combo from another card in the Pentacles, but there was something about it that just kept bothering me in this particular image, and so I just switched it to the solid cream. And I think this is the card that I'm currently going with, but that kind of depends on what people have to say. Sometimes people give me really good comments, either in my Good Journeys into Tarot Facebook group or here during our live. So what are your thoughts? What would you change or do differently, or what resonates?
Well, I love the pose that she has, right? So that's one of the things that I like about what you've chosen here is, she's got this little hand on the hip. It's a very much, she's owning this, right? She's owning what she has. She's not apologizing for it. I don't think it doesn't scream the greed that we sometimes see. So I think that's great. I tend to love the gray background on the wall. When you had the gray, that gray and black, I just think is a really pretty color combination, but that's just a personal preference. I tend to lean that way anyway. So I don't know, other people might have different thoughts on that. And so, oh wait, you had there we go. In that background there though, what I like is there's a little bit of a different relationship between her and the city in the foreground. You see a little bit more of those towers behind her head, which I think is cool. I think that gives you more of a city vibe. So that was like a cool little tweak that I saw.
Yeah, I actually I shrunk the window a little bit. And that meant I needed to move also the city in the background. So I did have a version that I don't see now where I had this wall on this one. Um, and I can definitely look at that again. So, do we have any thoughts from our chat room about it?
Well, I accidentally set off a New York conversation.
Right? Yes, I know, right? Do you know New York is one of those places that I've never actually been. I've been as far north as Washington D.C. And then as far west as Portland. Well, and I guess LA, but I was only at the LA airport, so that didn't really count, right?
I've been through a few airports that I've never seen the city in. I was like, sure would have been great to see Boston, but
Right, yeah. Yeah, there's several cities that are like that. Like Tokyo, I've been to the airport, but nowhere else in the country.
because you're
So
down in, are you down, you're down in Florida, right? Is that,
I'm in Georgia.
oh, Georgia. Oh
Yeah,
gosh, why did I think Florida? Okay.
outside Atlanta. Yeah,
Got
well, probably because I talk about StarCon, which is in Florida a lot.
ah,
So yeah, it's one of those things. So I have 6 cards left now, and in this journey that I have been taking, 70 cards in 78 weeks. Um, so next week, Avery Fawcett will be here, and we'll be talking about the card that Jen is going to help me pull. So if you want to choose a number between 1 and 6 or a multiple thereof, I will narrow down my search.
well, what would happen if I said 4?
Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I mean, might as well just keep the theme going.
Okay, it is the Knight of Pentacles. Interesting thing is that the last 5 cards, there is 1 card from every suit and 1 major arcana. So I've not finished any set of cards yet, so to
Oh,
speak,
that's funny.
really. Yeah, so next week we'll be talking more about stability for sure, um, from the perspective of a person in our lives or a part of ourselves. Um, this is our night of inaction when I think about him, right? He's totally stationary, unlike many of the knights. So can't wait to talk about that with Avery. So glad that you were here with us.
I was glad to be here too. It's really nice to talk to people that I haven't gotten to see in a little bit. I mean, sort of talk to people. So thank you
Yes,
for having me.
absolutely.
And I
I
enjoyed
got
seeing your
distracted
card
again.
that you're creating, or your deck that you're creating. So that's
Well,
cool.
thank you so much for being a part of it. I actually got distracted again because I just found out where Patrice is from. I actually I don't really do good at figuring out where people are from in the US unless they specifically tell me.
Hmm.
And even though, and like where I've seen people, like say I've seen them in Portland for Northwest Terror Symposium, or I've seen them at StarCon in Florida, if they didn't tell me they were from X state, then I have no clue. Really, I just know where I met them. So cool.
So everybody's either from Florida or Portland.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much again for being here. I appreciate everybody else for being here and listening to us chat about the 4 of Coins. I hope that you're getting something out of this series and that you'll join us again next week, as well as throughout the week in my variety of social media, which is in the link below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're visiting me for the first time, and reach out if you'd like to be on my channel sometime. I'll be doing other things after I finish these cards, which I already have booked till the very end. So excited about that. Till
Right.
next time, everybody, good journeys.